Welcome to Bridging Borders, the podcast where we try to bridge the gap between cultures through insightful conversations.
Together, we explore diverse topics from productivity to language learning, all the while helping you improve your English skills.
Hey Veronica, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk about today's topic, which is dating cultures in different countries. I think we have a lot of things to talk about, to share as well, because Sam is from the UK and I'm from Russia. And I think this episode is definitely going to be a bit more personal, but it's important to talk about those things. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot of new words while listening to this episode. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, and we both lived in different countries, so I guess we both have experiences of dating people from different countries as well. So yeah, there may be a few stories and a bit of personal information, but hopefully it's a good one. I thought we could start the episode by giving a bit of a background of dating history, maybe not her names and stuff, but just kind of how long and what ages we've been single or in a relationship for. So I was in a relationship from the age of 18 till 22 with a girl from my hometown. We went to the same city for university, so we continued that while I was doing my undergraduate degree. Then we broke up in my final year and her second year. No, I think it would have been her final year as well, actually. Then I was single for about 5 years. So I was in a relationship for 4 years, from 18 to 22. I was single for 4 to 5 years afterwards, after that, and that was while I was in Spain for a year and a half, and also in England afterwards, and also in my final year of university. And then I've been in a relationship for just over a year with my current girlfriend, but I was dating her for a while, actually. And we were, it just took me a while to actually commit to the relationship because I'm a bit of a commitment phobe. And after being after being single for 5 years, it was a bit of a scary jump, but I made the jump, and I'm very happy that I did. So yeah, I've been single for 5 years and been in a relationship for 5 years. So I've got a good mixture of both.
How do you think you overcame this fear that you had, like the fear of commitment? Like, what changed? What happened? How did you talk yourself through this whole situation?
Well, it was after a difficult conversation of her saying that, what's going on. We've been dating for a while now, a good few months, like over 6 months perhaps, and we were basically exclusive. Like, we were not seeing anyone, we weren't going on dates with anyone else. If we went out, we wouldn't kiss anyone or anything. And then she had this kind of like conversation, like, what's going on. And for me, it was kind of I wasn't even having the benefits of being single, of kind of meeting lots of different people and stuff. I was only kind of seeing her, so it was basically a relationship without the title. And the idea of losing what I had with her was kind of a lot worse in my imagination than just being in a relationship. Not specifically with her, but what I would lose from being in a relationship. So that's why I made the jump, because I thought, I really, really am happy with this person. And it's not that I was not wanted to be in a relationship with her. It's just I didn't want to be in a relationship, full stop. But the idea of kind of losing that relationship with her kind of pushed me not pushed me, but kind of, yeah, gave me the motivation to make it official.
Wow, it is so interesting because I think in this way we are a little bit different, because for a very long time I struggled with um, this feeling of I always wanted to be with someone because I didn't like being on my own. And I feel like in this way we're different, because I think so, you felt very comfortable being by yourself and not being in a relationship. And that's why you're like, I feel great, my life is great. Like, it's everything is amazing. That's why, like, I don't know how to think about it. But for me, I was so like scared and lonely to be by myself, and I was so ready to commit to just anyone and someone. And it's something that I really had to work on in therapy. It was probably impossible for me to work on by my own. I felt like I was struggling. I felt like every time I was on my own without like anyone else present, I felt extremely lonely. And yeah, fortunately, I was able to work on that and really like it brought me a lot of inner peace, and it really helped me like I'm fine by my own. Like I'm happy, and I don't want to find a person just so that this person satisfies this need, of like being with someone because I don't want to be alone, because it is not great. It is not healthy.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the time, people are looking for the things that they don't kind of have within themselves in other people to provide that for them. And it's a bit of a cheesy saying, but they say that you shouldn't get into maybe it's not this, but you shouldn't get into a relationship before you can't love someone else before you love yourself. I think that's what people say. But to put it into more tangible or practical steps, that maybe you shouldn't enter into a relationship before you don't feel comfortable by yourself, because you'll always kind of be seeking whatever you don't have by yourself from that person. So how long, what's the longest that you've been not in a relationship for since you've turned 18?
Since I turned 18. Well, it was interesting because when I was like in middle school, high school, I was only probably like in one relationship. So then when I turned 17, I went to college. So when I was 17, it was my first year in college. And then I think I started my relationship, my second or third like relationship that lasted for 2 years when I was 19. So from 19 to 21. Yeah, and then I met my current boyfriend last year. So we've been together for a year now. But so many things have changed, to be honest. If I compare myself like right now, my present self to who I was when I was 19 years old, I'm like, oh my God. There were so many things that I did not know, so many things that I felt like I really had to work on in terms of like, go to therapy, like work on myself, understand myself better. And I also recently learned that there are three things that so many people try to like compensate for in a relationship. It's just a very interesting idea. I don't want to say that it's like 100% true or 100% false. I just want like everyone to think about it for a little bit. So basically, a lot of people, when they enter a relationship, they try to compensate for three things that they didn't receive when they were little, when they were kids, and something they still cannot give themselves. So like it's okay, you weren't able to receive that one when you were a kid, but now you're an adult, so you can give yourself all of those things. So the first thing is love. So again, this like idea of I want to be in a relationship because I want someone to love me. That is not that great. Like you have to love yourself and enter a relationship when you feel like you have love to give and not like, oh no, please love me, give me love. So that's the first thing. The second thing is acceptance. A lot of people are looking for someone who will accept them, who will understand them, who will be like, yes, I accept you, understand you. And this creates this like very dependent, like codependent relationships, because you feel like only this person understands you, only this person accepts you, when in reality you can accept yourself, you can understand yourself. And the third thing is safety. So if you feel like you need money or housing, you don't have those things, and you meet a person who can provide all of those things for you, and you feel unsafe when you're by yourself, and only safe with this person because this person is giving you all of those things that make you feel safe, that's also not a very good idea. So once you kind of understand those things, and maybe I like start to think about it in terms of like, who am I? Do I feel like I need love, or do I feel like I need acceptance? Like, okay, those things I feel like I need to work on by myself, and not try to project all of those things into my relationship.
Yeah, it's so funny how many psychological things are happening in the brain when, my idea of why I'm in a relationship is like, or why I'd be in a relationship is because I just really like hanging out with a person and I'm kind of attracted to them. But really, there are kind of some, psychological things going on, especially related to childhood. I know you can do like some tests or something, or people describe themselves as like an avoidant person or kind of anxiously attached to people. I think I've done that, and I think my test said I was secure, which I was very happy about, and that's just now. But I think previously, when I've been single, or maybe I've kind of liked someone more than they've liked me, I think something psychologically happens then, and I'm kind of like, if it takes too long for them to reply to me, like my anxiety might start kind of stirring up, and I think, oh, maybe they don't like me, maybe there's something wrong with me. But that's when I was a lot more anxious generally. So maybe if I was single and that was happening to me now, I'd be able to cope with it a lot better. But yeah, when I've done the tests in the last year, it said I was secure, so I was pretty happy with that.
Nice. Yeah, so that's obviously something we all have to strive for, like feeling and being secure in a relationship instead of being codependent or something else, or avoidant, as you said. And these are like only things that you have to work on. Like sometimes you can analyze maybe your conversations with your partner, your feelings, your fights, and think, maybe I was wrong. Maybe there's something that I have to work on.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from all the questions in that, I think, are about parents, your mum and your dad. And I was really lucky to be born into a great family and have a great relationship with both my parents. So I know if you don't have a great relationship with at least one of your parents, then that can really affect your relationships, especially your romantic relationships going forward.
Yes, but also something that I recently learned and something that I'm like, oh, wow, this is so interesting and so smart is that so many people they say that, oh yeah, like I'm the way I am because of my dad or because of my mom, because they did something bad and that's why I'm the way I am. But it's so important to acknowledge the fact that, okay, you understand why you're the way you are right now, but like stop blaming them. Just let it go and work on this thing. Because it happens very often that we're like, well, I fall into codependent relationship because I had like this experience happen to me and there's nothing I can do about it. There is. It is not going to be very easy, but it is a process. It is something you can work on by yourself or in therapy, and it is definitely possible for you to change if you want to start being in a secure relationship, for sure. But I actually wanted to ask you, Sam, if you have ever used dating apps before and what you think about that.
Yeah, I actually met my current girlfriend on a dating app called Hinge. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've used dating apps quite a lot when I was single. Actually, I think that's like the normal way that people meet each other now. I think if you ask, I would say 75% of the people in the UK who have just got into a relationship, let's say like in the last 3 months, how did you two meet? I'm saying plus 75% on dating apps. It's just the absolute norm now. Maybe some people still create relationships from work, or maybe they're in your class at university, but dating apps are really common in the UK, and there's quite a few of them. There's Hinge, there's Bumble, there's Tinder, there's Grinder. But yeah, there's I'm sure there's even more now because I've been out of the game for a while. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots. But I've used them a lot. I used them when I lived in Spain, and I thought it was actually a really good way to meet people. I wasn't particularly looking for a relationship then, but I didn't know anyone when I moved to Madrid, so it was actually quite a nice way to meet people, go for a drink, and kind of chat to people, especially local people. So I think they're really good if you're living abroad to meet new people. But yeah, I've used them all throughout my time being single. But that doesn't mean I like using them. I actually really don't like using them because it's so weird. Like you have to construct this like profile of what you think is kind of your best version of yourself that shows certain elements of your personality. You're kind of like work. I don't love taking photos of myself or getting people to take photos of me. So you're kind of like working with some photos that, are not maybe the best. And you have to, I think of a bio, which is like the perfect amount of like funny, intellectual, or kind of serious and not so serious. And how can do I apply? Do I try and like uh, kind of not advertise or market, but I kind of represent myself as kind of, do I try and locate on, I don't know how to even describe it. Do I try and kind of present myself to a certain kind of type of person who's really going to like me, or do I try and make it kind of as general as possible to kind of keep my options open as wide as possible, if that makes sense? And having conversations on there is just absolutely chaotic because you don't know what this person is like, and still there is a kind of expectation that men start conversations. There are apps like Bumble where the girl or the woman has to kind of start the conversation. That's kind of like um, their niche, or kind of their unique selling point, is that the woman has to start the conversation within 24 hours of matching. But yeah, there's still an expectation on other apps for men to start the conversation, and you don't know what to say because you don't know this person. And it's like playing a video game. I don't know how much video games you've played, but sometimes if you play a role-playing game and you're starting a conversation with a non-playable character, you have like 4 maybe options that you can say to this person. And I feel like that's what it's like with kind of dating apps. Like, you start the conversation very kind of normally, like, hey, how are you? Or like, how was your weekend? Some people would find that absolutely fine. Then some people would find that the most boring thing ever, and you have to come up with something unique, but you don't know because it doesn't say anything like that on their profile. So you're just using guesswork, and it's just so psychological for people. And it's just, the process is incredibly long because people are always playing this kind of game of, I'm trying, I'm interested, but I'm not too interested, because that's the absolute worst, is when someone comes across too eager. From my experience anyway, when I've come across too eager, people get a bit, they think, oh no, they're coming across a bit too strong here, I'm stepping back. So you got to like play this like cool, oh, they took an hour to reply to me, I'll take an hour to reply to them. And people are all playing this game, and like they won't admit it, but they're all playing it, and it's just so annoying. I wish people would just be more upfront. Like, I'm free. I usually just at the end, I was just really direct. I was just like, I'm free next Thursday. Do you want to go for a drink? And there'd be like minimal conversation just to cut out all that kind of messaging aspect, because it's just so difficult.
Yeah. Wow. It's so interesting listening to these stories because I have never used a dating app before exactly because of that. I always felt like it was not 100% genuine. As you said, it's like you're playing a game, you're trying to present the best version of yourself while on the app. I have once downloaded Tinder and I started creating my profile. And then when I created it, I was like, this feels so weird. And I deleted it. Like, I never, got a match or anything. It was like literally 5 minutes. It took me 5 minutes to download the app and delete it and never use it again. So for me, that's something that I always felt like was true for dating apps. It always feels like you have to present yourself in this best light. And then, as you said, these like weird conversations, like going back and forth, no one being true, like no one being like very direct and honest. Yeah, it's interesting. But at the same time, see, you find your girlfriend, like your current girlfriend on the dating app, and that's also amazing. Like I know there are so many people who find, the loves of their life on dating apps. And if that works for those people, it's amazing. It's great. So
How did you meet your current boyfriend?
we met at a bar. And yeah, it was very interesting because I'm not a person to just go to a bar and drink and that's it. No. It was actually a meetup event organized by some people to kind of do like a foreign exchange for people to meet people from different countries, because here in Mexico City there's so many different people from a lot of different countries coming and going. So it's always a lot of fun. And I would go to that bar, and usually the events happen at bars. And so I would go to that bar like every week or every other week. And that's how I met my boyfriend.
So I'm guessing there was kind of some physical attraction right away, and then you got talking, and then it kind of went from there.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like that. We started talking, and there was this just one thing that really made me pause, and I would say really made me like look at him and think that wow, he's very interesting. Like I would like to talk to him more. Is because every time, like the first conversation we had, he just seemed so calm, like so calm, and like he was, there's just some people you talk to them and they're all over the place. And that's something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And it's just my personal thing. They're just like going there and there. Let's talk about this, that, like a lot of energy, too much energy. And especially when you go to those events, there are usually a lot of people, and everyone is also trying to be like cool and look at me, I'm great, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like sitting there and, just talking normally and being super calm. And yeah, and I was like, huh, interesting. I would like to talk to you more. And because also it's very common to exchange phone numbers when you go to those meetup events, it feels a lot more natural to be like, oh, can I save your phone number? Or do you want to save my phone number? It doesn't feel like you're hitting on another person, because a lot of people do that. And I would say even most people do that. When you go there, you're like, oh, it was fun, like fun talking to you. Can I save your phone number? Maybe, if we go talk more, because you find a lot of people who have the same hobbies, for example, or who come from the same country, who have a similar background, so obviously you want to talk to them more. And yeah, that's how it started. But of course you have to ask too, right? And some people feel even scared to ask. They're like, oh, what if this person is going to think that or this? But it pays off.
So was it friendly to begin with, or was it? Do you think it was kind of almost like a romantic interest from the get-go? And who was there one person who was kind of pushing it more than the other?
I would say this is very interesting, because I think here is when we come to like differences, like cultural differences or maybe personal differences, but at least this is who I am. I am very direct and straightforward. And I think it is true for most Russians. We can be very direct, very straightforward. And that's why some people might think we're rude or a little bit unfriendly, just because sometimes we're way too direct. And so that's why I think at the beginning, I was the person who was a little bit more, I wouldn't say direct, but I was definitely attracted to him. And I wouldn't mind. I mean, it's not that I wouldn't mind, I wanted us to start dating. So for me, it was important to know that, like, oh, is this something you're looking for? Because maybe he was not even looking to be in a relationship. And if you do want to be in a relationship, do you want to be in the same relationship that I want to be? Because right now, I know that I'm not in the stage of my life where I just want to date and, date and that's it. This is not like, for me, if I'm dating someone, it is serious. Like, I actually want to be with that person. Our like long term goals match. And so for me, it was important to discuss all of that from the beginning so that we just don't waste each other's time. And that is so important, because like it happens so often that one person is like, actually, like this is not something I'm interested in, and blah blah. And plus, when you go to those meetup events, you have to be also honest with yourself, because you will meet a lot of people who are not from this place, who are not from Mexico City. Maybe they're just traveling. And so maybe this person is going to tell you, you know what, like my plan is to travel the world. I'm not looking for a relationship right now. So if you want to, like, it's just starting out. So we can still be friends and talk, from time to time if you're interested in this. If you're not, it's okay, then it was nice to meet you. Bye. Have a great time, have a great day. So being honest and straightforward, I think it's important.
Yeah, well, it's good to know that people are still finding relationships in each other in the real world and not online. Because, yeah, like I said, I think a lot of people meet each other online. I'm sure there's been probably millions of weddings now, which have been the result of dating apps. But yeah, it was actually interesting what you said about kind of being upfront or direct about what people are looking for, because you know there is often a mismatch. And on some dating apps, I can remember on Hinge, which is kind of one for people who feel like they're a bit too old to use Tinder, or maybe people associate Tinder with more casual dating, and Hinge is maybe a little bit more, I don't know. There's still people still looking for something casual or casual dating on Hinge, but there is actually a setting on your profile. You can say what you're interested in. I think it's, looking for a relationship, something casual, or I don't know. And I always set my thing as I don't know, which I don't know if that would appeal to some people, because they might be like, oh, this guy doesn't even know what he wants. Like, why would I even be interested in him? But I suppose I didn't know what I wanted. My kind of stance was I had no particular goal. It wasn't like, oh, I'm only interested in kind of meeting people and seeing them for a few dates and that's it, or something casual. Or I definitely didn't want, okay, I'm actively searching for a relationship. So it was just kind of meet people, see how I get on, and see how things progress naturally. But there wasn't an option for that, so I pressed I don't know. But yeah, in terms of dating culture in the UK, I think males are still expected to initiate the romantic aspect of it. So perhaps that might be kind of leaning in for a kiss or asking someone on a date. I don't think there's really too much difference in terms of paying for things now. I think it's probably pretty equal. I think people just split it. So, for example, if you go for a drink with someone and you have one round of beers or glasses of wine, the guy might buy the first one and the girl might buy the next one. That's my kind of understanding of how it works most of the time. I think that the same is in Spain as well, actually. I don't think really there's an expectation. Maybe it's just I've been lucky with the people who I've met, but there's definitely, I've never felt like there was an expectation of, wow, he's got to pay for everything. I have been on a date before with a girl in England, and it's actually, this is a weird story, but we met on a dating app, and she said, oh, I hate speaking on dating apps. Do you want to talk via email? And it sounds crazy, but I was like, yeah, whatever. And we kind of had this format of we'd send each other one email every single night, and it would be like asking each other questions like, what's your favorite dream destination to go on holiday? What's your favorite TV series? And we'd kind of give an answer and an explanation, and then kind of ask the other person the same questions, and we'd find out information like that. Then we went on the date, and the emailing aspect was actually really fun. And I thought, wow, this seems like an interesting person. I'm looking forward to meeting her. And then on the date, it was just kind of dead, and there was no connection whatsoever or chemistry. And I had a pint of beer and she had a glass of wine. I don't know if she just wasn't into drinking alcohol. Maybe that was the case. But I finished my pint within 30 minutes, and I was kind of waiting for her to say, do you want to get another drink or shall we get another one? And she never really did. And I in my head, I was thinking, oh, she expects me to continue buying her drinks. And for me, that was actually a bit off-putting, because I was like, I'm not just here to buy you drinks and you to have a good time. So that culture definitely doesn't exist in the UK. I'm sure some women have that attitude where they think men should pay for things. I'm sure loads of people probably in the UK still think to that, and probably the older you are, that's still the case. But I think a lot of women are probably quite happy to. It's not that they weren't happy to, but they want to split things. And like I said to you before we started recording, I went on a date when I was dating a girl in Spain once. She was so adamant on splitting absolutely everything, where even if I spent €2 on her on a beer each, she would be adamant on giving me that euro back, because I guess it's this kind of feminist idea that men shouldn't kind of be expected to get something from you in any way, shape, or possible just because they paid for something. And she earned money, and she was very happy to contribute towards what we were doing. So there's definitely not that element in the UK in terms of what I've expected. Dating usually revolves around alcohol, unfortunately. I'm sure most of I'd say 95% of the dates I've been on, first dates anyway, have been just simply meeting up in the evening and going for an alcoholic drink. It's a little bit different in Spain, especially in Valencia, because there was a lovely park that you could just kind of meet in and go for a walk and maybe have a beer or coffee then. And that was a lot more kind of, yeah, you didn't really need alcohol for that, and it was a good way to meet someone. But in the UK, it's definitely you are meeting someone for an alcoholic drink in a pub or a bar, and that's usually it. Yeah, you have a few drinks, and it depends how how well you're getting on with each other. You might go home with each other. You may want to leave after the first drink, and you may do that, like I did with that girl who I was emailing. But yeah, it's mostly centered around alcohol. I guess some people would probably go for coffee, or especially if you don't know the person. If you know the person, like it's someone from work, for example, and you already know them a little bit, maybe you do something else. But I don't think it's ever really going for a meal. I've never been for an actual proper sit down kind of spend 20, 30 pounds on a meal, because you might not even like the person, then you just spent 30 pounds on an evening that you didn't really need to. So I feel like an alcoholic drink is an easy way just to kind of meet the person, test the waters, see if you've got some type of chemistry, and then if you want to do something else, something maybe more costly in terms of money or time, then you can do that. But yeah, most of the time it centers around alcohol. Go for a drink. Yeah, you might go for a few drinks, and then you might go home, and then you kind of it's kind of like tension of like, you've both left. When do you text each other? Like, what does the text say? Are they going to say? Most of the time you can obviously tell. Like, usually if you go on a first date, you can tell if there's a connection, or she liked you or you liked them. But sometimes it's not really easy to know, because some people aren't very direct, or they're quite reserved with their feelings, especially British people. So sometimes you have no idea, and you're kind of waiting for the text saying, "Oh yeah, I had a lovely time. I'd love to see you again." But there's always that kind of tension of when does that happen? When do you send that? Do you wait? I know in films you hear like you have to wait like 3 days before you text someone, but I think if you waited 3 days now, I think that was before smartphones, but if you waited 3 days now, the person probably wouldn't even reply to you back, because you're like, "Oh, this guy's wasting my time." But who knows? But yeah, that's. Do you have any other questions? I'm trying to think of anything else in terms of what British dating in British culture is like.
I would say one question that I'm very interested in is it expected to be romantic or to do some romantic gestures on dates?
No way, absolutely not. British people are not doing that whatsoever. I was going to ask you, because I checked your notes before the show about kind of people bringing. Maybe you can talk about this a bit longer, but bringing gifts and stuff. And oh, if I brought flowers or a gift or like chocolates or anything like that to a first date, the girl would put her off. I promise you, most girls would be like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" It's like not the 1800s or something, and they would be like, "Nope." Like, do you know what the term "ick" is?
Ick, like a weird thing or like weird feeling, like something that weirds me out.
Yeah, yeah, that is actually one of the definitions. Actually, like, yeah, exactly. But there's this new kind of term that's been used maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, and it kind of started on Twitter with girls posting what their ick is, and an ick is behavior that maybe a potential date or someone is doing, and it's like a behavior which makes them not kind of fancy them anymore. And this blew up. This blew up on the internet because some of the ones were just ridiculous. I'm going to try and read some now, but the, some of them are just so funny. Like, one of them is a girl's ick is when a guy's is holding an umbrella, and it's so windy that they kind of like the umbrella kind of like inverts, and if a girl sees like a happening to avoid, they're like, "I can't fancy him anymore."
What? This is crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah, so I'm gonna read some. Someone started an ick thread, and this kind of student newspaper called Tab kind of has saved some of the most funny ones. I'll read some out. One of them is being excited to see me.
Oh my god.
One of them is them sitting on the toilet, running up the stairs on all fours, sat on one of those bar stools and their legs are just dangling freely, sitting cross-legged, pressing the traffic light button and waiting for the green man. Um, yeah, filling their car up with petrol. Don't know why, just makes me feel so weird. The thought of them getting run over, so embarrassing. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of weird things that's happening in a dating scene in the UK, but yeah.
This is really weird for me. I didn't think we have anything like that in Russia in terms of like having an ick if a guy has an umbrella and he does something and like the wind something happens. No, definitely not.
Yeah, it's funny.
It is funny. I think in a lot of different ways, I would say our dating cultures are different. I think in Russia, it is extremely important to be romantic and thoughtful and bring flowers or little gifts. I would say that like first dates are usually shorter. It depends on people, you know, what they want, but they usually include maybe a coffee or maybe eating something like a meal or maybe going to a bar. It depends, you know, what you prefer. But I would say if you're interested in each other, it is important to like have a kind of like proper first date, not first date, but like an official date when everyone kind of dresses up nicely. You usually a guy brings flowers or like a little gift, and you go to a nice restaurant, and of course the guy has to pay. And I think it is not connected to this idea that, you know, as a woman, I can't pay or I don't have enough money to pay. Of course not. Like a lot of women right now, they work and they feel confident in their abilities to make money and pay for their food. But the problem here is that, not the problem, but like the unique aspect of it is that I think in Russia, a lot of people, even nowadays, will really believe in different roles that men and women have. We, in terms of equality, we're all equal, we're all the same. However, we have different roles. Like as a woman, I have my role. As a man, this person has a different role. And that's why in Russia, every person, you know, has certain things that they do according to their role. But again, I have to obviously mention that I don't want to say that every single person in Russia is like that. But I think it is only my opinion. I might be wrong. I think most people are like that. And most people still believe in these roles and these kind of traditional roles. Men are typically expected to be chivalrous, take the lead, and they don't have to be the person, you know, the breadwinner or the person, the only person who is making money in a relationship. No, right now, no. Like women are making money, they're building careers. Oftentimes, they might even make more money than men. But still, like when you're in a relationship as a woman, in terms of like these traditional roles that we have, women are often expected to be more feminine and kind of like supportive and light and airy and like flirty, stuff like that. So I would say when, as a woman, you go to work, if you're a boss, obviously you can be strong and take the lead and be like, you know, all of those qualities as well. But when you come back home and you're in your relationship, um, and in your relationship, your role changes. So now you're not the boss anymore. You're not bossing around your husband. So that's at least what happens in Russia. And I think in terms of gifts, like flowers, small gifts, they are very important because I feel like at the beginning there is this certain level of formality in the early stages of a relationship. And if I feel like a guy only wants to like go to bars with me and drink and that's it, and also if he wants me to pay too, that's immediately a sign for me that he's not interested in me. Like he's not interested in a relationship with me. That's extremely weird for me. Like very weird. It's very interesting to discuss this because Sam, you just said that that's exactly what happens in the UK. But for me, if this happened to me, I would be like, okay, dude, like just say you're not interested in me. Like let's not waste each other's time. Yeah. And I also think another important part is the way you dress up. I would say like people really try to dress up for dates and they try to look well groomed, and dressing appropriately is appreciated because I guess this way we show respect for the other person, especially if we go to a nice restaurant. And I would say it's completely normal for the people to choose a place together, or even like for a woman to say like, oh look, I want to go here, let's go here. Like it is not expected that like a man will do everything, you have to choose a place, you have to bring flowers, you have to, no, of course not. But there are just certain things that uh I guess for me they will show that a guy is interested in me if he does those things. And I also think that I wanted to ask you this question, Sam, because I think the reason why in so many countries it's not something that people do is because this way women feel like they have to do something, right? Because if a guy gives them a present, brings them flowers, then it means that they have to date them, or they have to be nice to them, or like this idea of, oh, you're nice to me, you brought me flowers, and that's why I have to do something too. Is that true?
I don't think anyone under the age of kind of 35 is bringing a gift to any date, especially a first date. Never. If I turned up to a first date with a girl and I had some flowers, she would go to the bathroom. She would text her girl group chat saying, "Got the ick already. He's brought me flowers," or "He's an absolute weirdo. He's brought flowers or a gift for me." It's just not part of the culture whatsoever.
But why is it weird? Like it's so strange for me because like a person is being nice to you, like a guy is being nice to you, he brought you flowers, why would you be like, oh that's weird, I hate those flowers? It is a nice gesture and you can appreciate it, and that's it.
It's weird because I think people there's no that a first date is not romantic in a sense. People save romance for when the relationship has developed a bit further. So I wouldn't dream of doing that. I don't think I've even bought my girlfriend flowers, and I've known her for like a year and a half, and I've been with her for a year. I don't think I've bought her a bunch of flowers once. But that I don't think that makes me a bad boyfriend. I just don't think that's gift buying is kind of part of the is not part of the culture whatsoever, apart from like Christmas and birthdays and stuff, or maybe Valentine's Day, for example. But I think people go in, from my experience anyway. I'm sure a lot of people view it differently. It's an informal kind of experience of when you're just meeting up with someone and just seeing if you have a connection, and just kind of seeing where things go. You might have this end goal, like I want to be in a relationship, but a first date is not kind of an opportunity for you to be romantic, because you're kind of revealing how you feel about this person before you've really got to know them or to meet them. So it kind of, like I mentioned at the start, in the UK, you either on either end, male or female, even in homosexual relationships, you don't want to come across too eager, or you don't want to show that you like the person way more than the other person, because it will just put them off. And I feel like being overly romantic, especially through gestures or gift buying, is kind of a version of saying I'm really into you, or like I want to kind of take this further, or I want to be in a romantic situation with you. Especially because that's kind of the first, like if you meet someone and you bring them a gift, like you have to give them the gift straight away, or like you have to give them the flowers straight away. You can't just have these flowers in your under your arm, under your shoulder for like 3 hours and be like, oh, I've got these for you. Like they're going to be visible from the get-go. And yeah, I think it's probably because of that. Maybe it used to be like that, but it's definitely like I've never. The most I'll do is is buy you more drinks than you've bought me. But yeah, that's and walk you to your door. But that's about it.
Oh, Okay, that's interesting because I think the way we approach it in Russia is that, we had a conversation. If we liked each other, obviously we can meet up again, we can take it further. But I don't feel like if a person brings me flowers, it means that, like, necessarily it's like a big gesture and it means that, oh, they're really into me. For me, it's just a nice gesture. It's they thought about me, they went to choose the flowers, they got them, because flowers are not expensive at all, so it doesn't even have to be a gift. Usually it's flowers, especially when it's like everything is just starting out. So it's very nice, and I guess it just adds to the fact that if you both like each other, it's nice. You're like, oh, I like this person likes me back, and they brought flowers, so they must really like me because I really like them. So that's great. But if you kind of you talk and you realize that, I don't know, maybe not, you still get, you understand that you don't have to continue, and that person understand that too. So it just depends on your budget, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring them like 50 roses. Of course not. Obviously, those gifts are saved for when you're actually like together in a relationship, or even if you're married, something that is a lot more serious. Usually, it's just a little something.
Yeah, well, I know you've got this day in Russia called like Women's Day, where you buy flowers or gifts for the women in your life, and that could be your sister, your female colleagues, your mum. So maybe that is kind of to do with it, kind of this kind of aspect of gift buying, especially flowers for women. Maybe that's just way more kind of ingrained into the culture because, yeah, I think I've bought one bunch of flowers in my life for and that was my ex-girlfriend. So, yeah, it's not, maybe I'm just clearly very unromantic, or, yeah, it's not part of the British culture.
Yeah, I think it's a very cultural thing for sure because, yeah, we have this holiday in March. And we usually give a bunch of flowers. It's obviously when people who own like flower businesses, they probably make the most money because it's like everyone, you just go outside and you see everyone with flowers. And it's nice. It's a nice day. And usually at home, you have a lot of flowers and it just feels great. But I actually wanted to ask this also super interesting thing because I wanted to learn what it's like in the UK. What do you think about meeting the family? So, is it an important part in your culture, especially if you're serious, right? If you're in a serious commitment, in a serious relationship, is it important to meet the family? How does it work?
Yeah, I think people delay it as long as possible, for most people anyway, because it kind of adds this extra seriousness to the relationship, and it involves other people as well. And I guess it kind of involves variables which you can't really control. So, for example, if you don't like your boyfriend's or girlfriend's parents, then this might negatively reflect the kind of impact the relationship, or the parents might not like your partner, for example, and that you might think, oh, maybe they're not the person for me then, or whatever. But I think it's a big deal. It's not really a big deal for me because I know my parents are really easy to get on with, and I know that if I was in a relationship with a person, I kind of know that if I was in a relationship with them, they would kind of get on with my parents. When I met my girlfriend's parents now, it was kind of a bit more of a big issue because my girlfriend's half Indian. So her dad is Indian, and maybe they have a bit more of a traditional aspect of, oh, I'm meeting my daughter's boyfriend. I feel like it's different with daughters and like dads and daughters and their boyfriend. I feel like it's a bit of a different dynamic than for me. It is like I don't mind at all. It's not really a big issue, but I feel like it's a bit different when there's like a dad and he's like a bit more maybe traditional or protective, and you're meeting your daughter's boyfriend. So yeah, it's not really, family aren't really, it depends on the relationship, I guess, but most relationships, especially not when people are still young, family isn't really that big of an issue, to be honest. It's quite a common stereotype that people don't like their in-laws. I think maybe that's just like in the UK. I don't know if that's just in the UK, but yeah, that's usually a stereotype. Luckily, I like mine, and I think my girlfriend likes my family as well, so we're all good.
Yeah, I think it's maybe in a way similar in Russia because obviously meeting uh, the family is very serious. And I would say it is important if you are in a serious relationship, if you want to get married or this person is very important for you. But I would also say that right now, a lot of people understand that, you know, you are dating this person and not their family. So even if you don't like their family or like this person's family doesn't like you, it's not the end of the world because you're still building your own relationship. And that actually doesn't have to bother you much. So it does happen, but I think the family in Russia is very important. I think it's something that we have in common with people here in Mexico. Because right now I live in Mexico, and when I came here, I noticed that immediately. Because I think family is kind of like a central place in the Russian culture, and that is really reflected in the dating scene as well. Many Russians value strong family ties, and that's why we often try to seek long term relationships with the intention of building a family. So, for us, if for many people in Russia, if you're in a serious relationship, it's because you want to build a family with this person. So, that's why it's so important, something that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, to be honest at the very beginning and be like, okay, what do you want? Do you feel like you want to have kids in the future? Do you want to start a family? Because if for one person it is important, it is something that they absolutely want to do and they're 100% sure about that, they have to find the same person. Because unfortunately in the past I was in a relationship where I didn't have that conversation, and we were very different in terms of our important life goals, right? Because people can be different and people are different. Like, we will never find a person who is exactly the same. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be boring and kind of weird to be with a person who is exactly 100% the same. However, those like important things, you know, like important kind of life goals, or like what's the vision, what's the bigger intention for life, it has to be the same. It's kind of, you know, like people have to be moving in the same direction, because if we're not moving in the same direction, then, you know, it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah, I've taught quite a few Russians over the last 2 years, and all of them, regardless of age, some of them kind of similar ages to me. I'm 28 now, or maybe a bit younger. They were all married, and every single one of them, and that kind of gave me an indication that maybe people settle down and marry a bit earlier than they do in the UK, because like I just said, I'm 28. Only one person who I'd consider a friend uh, has got married. I know two friends who are engaged right now. I know one friend who's married, and one of my like relatively good friends, his girlfriend's currently pregnant, and none of them have babies. So it's, if I was to ask my mum when she was 28, she had me when she was 29. I'm sure my mum knew loads of people who were married, and well, she was married at that stage, and had children. So I feel like in Russia maybe people still get married or have children a bit earlier than they do in the UK.
I would say right now something very interesting is happening. I think because we still have this idea that like a lot of people value commitment and a serious relationship. Young people right now, they do get married still relatively young compared to the UK, for example, but a lot of people wait to have kids. So I would say in the past in Russia, people would, you know, get married and immediately have kids and like everything would be super quick. But what's happening right now is, for example, all of my Russian friends who I know here in Mexico, they're all married or like in a super serious relationship, but none of them have kids. So that's also a very interesting aspect of that. And I think it's something that is becoming more and more common right now, just because people marry, they want to be in this relationship, they want to create a family in the future. But right now, because they're young, they want to make more money, maybe they want to travel. So that's why they decide to not have kids very quick.
What I was going to ask you is if you have had any cultural clashes in terms of your current relationship, because it seems like, well, definitely the British and the Russian idea of dating and perhaps expectations of what's normal, or these kind of gender roles or whatever, is completely different. Have you kind of had any, maybe not bumpy parts of your relationship, but kind of like, oh, that's how people do it in this country, or kind of that's what he expects of me, which is different from what I expect due to my culture, or maybe even kind of love languages. I don't know if you know what this idea is, but it seems like maybe I've got the 5 up here, so there are, you can give. This is like how you give love and how you also receive love. One of them is acts of service, so perhaps they do some type of task for you, or can they kind of do something physical which is kind for you. Quality time, words of affirmation, so kind of saying things which are nice about the other person, or saying stuff like that. Physical touch and receiving gifts, which seems kind of very important in the Russian dating culture.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting, yeah, because this idea of 5 love languages it's very, very interesting. And of course, like if you can clearly pinpoint exactly one thing that makes you feel loved the most, then it will help you. But I don't know, to be honest, over the years, I realized that originally I thought that, oh, this was my love language or that was my love language. But now I understand that like everything that the other person does for me that is nice makes me feel loved and appreciated. It doesn't, well, it depends, I guess, on a person. But for me, like, I'm not gonna count and be like, okay, this month you haven't given me a gift. And for me, gifts are like a love language. It's just everything feels like, oh, I feel like for me, especially right now, it's more like in these small little details. Like, I don't know. I'm making lasagna for dinner, and you know that I love to have this specific cheese with lasagna. Well, vegan cheese because I'm vegan. So you went and got it for me because you know that I love this like specific one. So like those little things like that, I feel like they are appreciated a lot more. And in terms of something that surprised me a lot, or maybe I had like, some different ideas with like different people, or we were a little bit different culturally, I think you can like you can always talk about that, because if you believe that for you it is important, like for me it was important to go on a date and like dress up nicely and feel like we're at a nice place and receive flowers. For me it was important, and it is not something absolutely and like impossibly difficult to do. It is not difficult. And I think like if you start dating a person from a different culture, you have to be willing to adapt and change and do certain things that you're not used to doing. So I believe maybe for you, Sam, it's the same thing. Maybe there are certain things that you have never done before, and now your current relationship, you're trying to be more mindful because that person is a little bit different. But I think it's also vice versa. It's the same thing is true for me, because I'm Russian and I'm used to like a specific dating style or stuff like that. I cannot expect from my boyfriend that he's gonna know everything, because he's not Russian and he has never lived in Russia and he doesn't know what it's like. So maybe he's gonna show up to a date and he's not gonna bring me flowers, but maybe he doesn't even know. Like, for example, a big part about flowers is also that you have to give an even, no, sorry, not an even, an odd number of flowers, not an even number of flowers. And for example, in the States, people don't care. It's very common to bring a dozen of flowers, which is 12, which is an even number. And in Russia, you cannot do that. If you bring 12 flowers, people are going to be like, okay, no, thanks. So that's also something that you have to give this other person space. And if they never knew and you didn't warn them and they brought you 12 flowers and in your culture it's not a very good thing, like don't get upset. Just, make it like a little joke, like, you do you want me to tell you a little story? It's going to be funny. So it's very important to kind of give space, and allow this person to maybe not know certain things, especially because this person is from a different culture and a completely different background.
Yeah, that's some good advice, especially for kind of dating in different cultures, especially if you're kind of your culture has some specific kind of attributes. For example, if a lot of British people went to most other countries and dated, I think they would find quite a few things that they realized that were different because it's just how informal it is in the UK. But I have a story of how even in Spain it's even more informal sometimes. And it was within the first month that I'd moved to Spain, and I was using Tinder, and I'd met maybe one American girl, and then a few weeks later I met this Dominican Republican girl from the Dominican Republic, and we met in some neighborhood in Madrid, and it wasn't much. I can't remember. We didn't speak for long. It was just like, "Are you free tonight?" Yeah. We met. Maybe it was probably quite late, like 9, because Spanish people just love doing everything stupidly late. So if they go for dinner, if they go for food, it's like 8 p.m. Minimum. And I've been to a restaurant at 9 p.m. and it's like people are like, "Oh, it's a bit early," and I'm like, "What?" That's crazy. So we met probably pretty late. They go clubbing stupidly late as well. Like in the UK, usually people go out if they go to a club between 11 and 12, but probably not before 12. And then the club usually finishes at 4. Some of them finish on rare occasions at 6 o'clock in the morning, but most of them 4 o'clock, or 3 or 4 o'clock. But in Spain, sometimes they just go there at 2 o'clock and then they stay out until when it gets light, or they just continue into the next day. They're crazy. But yeah, I met this girl from the Dominican Republic. It was quite late. I can remember it was quite late because she took me to a club, and I've never done that on a first date before because I was new in Madrid. She lived there, and I thought, I'd just let you take control of the date. It was, let's meet up, and we hadn't planned on going anywhere. We're just kind of meeting at this place, and I was like, let's do whatever you want to do, or go to a bar, which you like. And then she was like, "Oh, let's go to this club." I was like, "Okay, whatever." And it's like really loud reggaeton, and I haven't heard reggaeton before apart from that song Despacito. I don't even know if that counts as reggaeton, but I wasn't familiar with what it was whatsoever. But it's the main music, like dancing music they listen to in Spain, and it was just full of obviously Spanish people and probably quite a few people from South America as well. And everyone was just dancing in this very specific way and just like kind of like really, really there. And I was stone cold sober, and I like dancing when I go out with my friends or to a club. But most of the time I'm like pretty drunk when I'm kind of in that mode. So I was stone cold sober. I had no alcohol in the system, so I was like, "This is making me uncomfortable." And I don't know if you know who. I think most people listening won't know who this is, but there's this very famous, in Britain anyway, journalist called Louis Theroux, and he looks like a very stereotypical British person. He wears turtlenecks, he wears glasses, he's kind of tall, and he is quite famous because he's like this quite funny journalist, and he does documentaries. And he got famous because he did this documentary series called Weird Weekends, where he'd go to these really weird subcultures in America and kind of immerse himself in these situations. And people feel like they're Louis Theroux sometimes when they're in like a crazy situation and they're kind of in the center of it. And in my head, I'm like, "I'm Louis Theroux, I'm Louis Theroux, I'm Louis Theroux." And I obviously drank a beer very quickly. Drank another beer probably very quickly, and I couldn't really get into the dancing whatsoever. I gave it a go, but I was just like, I looked at her after like 5 or 10 minutes. It's like, "I don't really want to be in here," and she said, "You are so awkward," or something like that, and I was like just cringing in my head, like, "Oh god, this isn't going well." And then, but we did go to a different bar. I think it was like a jazz bar, or something, and the rest of the date went very smoothly. So that was definitely a cultural clash of her expecting me to know how to dance to reggaeton within the first 2 weeks of being in Spain. But that was quite a funny interaction that I had, which I probably was a little bit embarrassed at the time, but I find it quite funny now.
It is funny, yeah, because I think in Mexico, obviously people love reggaeton too. They go to all those clubs and also they love to stay up late and party and drink and dance and sing and have fun. I think for me, it would be extremely weird too to go to like a bar, a reggaeton club and dance because I mean it is very like you're dancing very close to each other, and especially if it's like the first time you're interacting. Yeah, that would make me feel extremely uncomfortable too. It is not something that I'm used to. I also think that a lot of people in Russia, I can I think a lot of people, I'm not sure if everyone is like that, but a lot of people also think that it's weird to kiss on the first date. Cause it's like, yeah, because people think that you're just it's weird. Like in a way, we try to be more romantic, but at the same time, we really try to respect another person's like space. And we want to make sure that, oh, you like me too. Okay, let's go on like a few dates first. So to me too, like if someone is trying to kiss me on the first date, I'm like, I don't know. That's weird. Like, I don't want to do that. So I think it's also like a very interesting cultural difference.
I think it's different in the UK and Spain as well. I think it's pretty normal to kiss on the first date, especially kind of on leaving. Like there's kind of that. I think for me, there's always that tension building, especially if it's in the evening and maybe you've been drinking. There's this kind of tension towards kind of the end of the night and seeing what's going to happen. And I would say, yeah, if the date goes well, there's absolutely no reason not to kind of break that barrier of physical intimacy or in any way. But yeah, there's people, British people are just definitely not romantic. That's what I'm putting it down to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I would think that um, it is very common for us, for example, to go on dates, to go to like a park or to go on a walk or to go to a place where you can play board games, let's say. So, doing something a little bit more chill, something that does not necessarily involve alcohol. And so that's why, because of that, like you can just go drink some coffee, let's say, and play a board game, and that's it. That's your whole date. So like it's not too late. Usually on the weekend, it's like let's say 3 p.m. You're like, oh yeah, it was nice talking to you. And I feel like it's also nice leaving when you feel like you have so much more to say. Like if you really like this person and you're like, okay, like I have to leave, but like I can't wait to see you again. And it's genuine and it's true. And when you leave, you're like, oh my God, it was amazing. I can't wait to see this person again. Where are we meeting up again? So that's also, I would say, very common to have like those little small dates. And then this is, I guess, how we build the tension, like by going on those like little small dates. And then you have like a big date when you dress up, you go to a nice restaurant, and yeah, then you kiss. And yeah, if everyone wants to do that.
For me on a first date, it's the idea of a club is just not for me because I like to kind of get to learn more about the person and kind of maybe learn about who they are and what they think and their opinions on things. And I have to be attracted to them physically, but also maybe emotionally and intellectually as well. Because if we're not on the same kind of level in terms of different things, or even they don't have to share the same opinions with me whatsoever, but kind of if I can have an interesting conversation with them, then that is a green flag for me. And in a club, you can't really get that, can you?
Yeah, this idea of like green flags and red flags is also very interesting. And I think, again, as I said, it's just so important to, in terms of like cultural differences, to give this other person space. And for example, I'm not going to be like, oh, you didn't bring me flowers. It's a red flag, especially if it's a person from a different culture. Obviously, there are certain, like things that you can't tolerate. And if that's it for you, okay, it's fine. But I think it was a very interesting conversation. I definitely learned a lot of things, and I think it really helped me broaden my horizon a little bit because there's so many unique and different things that people do in Great Britain, and there are different things that we do in Russia. So, guys, it's going to be extremely interesting for us and for everyone listening and watching to hear maybe your experience. You can leave us a comment and say what it's like in your country. Maybe it's different, maybe it's the same. So please share that with us.
Yeah, that was really interesting for me as well. And if anyone listening, if you go on a date with a Russian girl, remember, odd number of flowers or you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Sam, so much for this conversation, and have a great day.
Thank you, Veronica, and thank you for everyone listening.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Bridging Borders. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more useful insights.
Stay connected by following us on social media. You can find us at bridging_borders_podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting.